This is Live for Love TV. Live for Love TV. Yes, I am.
One step more. One step more. One step more. Until you reach your goals. One step more. Save them soul. One step more. One step more. How good it is to reach the
Live for Love TV. This is Live for Love TV. Live for Love TV.
Back here with Live for Love TV, 7th day of the 6th month of the 21st year of the 21st century. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Today we've got a very serious subject to deal with. Black on black violence. How did we get here? Why are we in such a terrible state? In America, Black Lives Matter drew attention to the racism that black people face all over this planet and have been facing for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they made a great highlight of that situation. And we've taken it up from the George Floyd going forward. But it seems to be lost in transit somewhere that black people are still killing black people at a high rate, really an unacceptable rate everywhere on the planet. And especially in Western countries or Western hemisphere, it seems to be where it's at its worst. What do we do? How do we get here? What's the solution? Well, there is a big problem because we have people killing people in front of hundreds of people, sometimes 10, 20, 30, sometimes hundreds of people, and nobody speaks out. Because what do they say? Snitches get stitches. Basically, if you say anything about the person who's done it, you're an informer. It's funny how they've taken over the narrative, the criminals, because when I was growing up, an informer was somebody in the criminal fraternity who spoke against another criminal to the police, either for money or for general bad-mindedness. You literally had to be a criminal. That's the only way you knew who the criminals were. And they used to speak against their own. There was never a time back in the day that if somebody did something in front of you and you were a genuine, everyday, regular person who was not in the criminal fraternity, that you would have been called an informer. That wasn't how it was. But somehow the criminals have taken over the narrative. So now, if you see someone shot to death right in front of you, and you say anything to the authorities about the person who's done it, you are now styled as an informer. And they've taken over the narrative to such a point that even the 9-to-5ers are actually calling other 9-to-5ers who say anything that they're informers. There's a big problem there, especially in our community, because there's no way any police force on the planet can investigate properly without witnesses. There's no way. They're not there. You were the one standing there, you saw it. And if you decide that you're not going to say anything, then the murderer is going to keep walking amongst us as they are right now. And then they hit again, and then they hit again, and then they hit again. Now we know the relationship we have with the police in the UK, especially in America, is very bad. Nobody wants to speak to them on an everyday basis, regardless of whether it's about crime or not. But when it comes to these type of things, these type of murders, every time somebody's murdered, the family comes forward and says, please, please, can someone give us help? Can someone help the police? Can someone? The question is, if it was somebody else's family, would that same family help? Because we're in a situation now where it seems like nobody wants to help unless it happens to their direct family, to their brother, their sister, their son. Other than that, keep out of it. That's what you're told by your family and friends. It's not you, keep out of it. And that's why we don't get anywhere. And that's why the murderers in our community are emboldened to carry on doing what they're doing. They know no one's going to say anything. There's more chance of a person nowadays getting caught stealing from a car or from someone's house. People don't mind speaking about that. But when it comes to murder, no one's going to say anything. Now, we have to change the narrative. A witness to a murder is not an informer unless he is part of that criminal fraternity that went out to carry out that act. That would be an informer. If he's part of it and decides to turn coat, they could call him an informer. But they shouldn't be able to say to anybody else that you cannot speak about anything they do. But the fact that they've been able to get away with that for so many years in our community is why we're at this place. And everyone sits in their house and says, oh, this has got to stop. It can't stop. It's not going to stop. If the person is emboldened and believes they can literally kill in front of as many witnesses as possible, then why would they stop? Anybody who knows anything about crime knows if you're going to do something as serious that you do it without witnesses. But in our community, it doesn't seem to matter. As much witnesses as possible, maybe, sometimes even more. The more the merrier. Because the more witnesses, the more fear. The more nobody will say anything. The more somebody will say, well, it was the man across the road that said something. I saw the police at his house for too long. Maybe he was the one that spoke out. And then maybe the criminals will come for him. So the argument that we've got too much violence and too much murder in our community is a very mute argument unless the informer situation is changed. Unless people decide they're going to stand up and speak out, not just when it happens to their families, but in general. If they decide they're not going to do that, then we need to just stop the talking, forget the arguments about our youths are being killed and our youths are killing one another and all that, and how is it going to stop and what's the solution? There ain't no solution. There can't be a solution if you have hundreds of witnesses and nobody speaks out. There can't be any solution. The solution is for people to stand up to these people and say no. And if we're in a situation where they will always come for you and the rest of the community will not support the person who has been the witness, then I'd agree, don't say anything. Because if you're not going to get support when you need support, then leave it until it comes to your family. Because that's what everyone's doing right now. So it's a conundrum that we have to deal with. Stop banging on about the police. The police are after the event people. That's what they do. They come after your house has been broken in, or your car's been stolen, or somebody's been shot in your family. They've always done that. They always come after, and they need help. They can't do it. If you had a police force, you'd have to have some information in order to know who and where to go. And if people are seeing these things and not saying anything, they certainly can't blame the police on this one. So, Black Lives Matter, yes they do, but they matter every time someone is hurt, or murdered. They matter. They don't just matter when a European or a white person puts their knee on someone's neck or shoots an unarmed man. They matter at all times. And that's what we have to deal with from here on going forward. So Live for Love TV. Check you back soon.
People!